Hello, and welcome to Weekend Wisdom. My name is Tracy Whitney. I'm the content director for creatingafamily.org, and I am the new host of both podcasts for the organization. I love Weekend Wisdom because it's an opportunity to bring you specific answers to specific questions that you share with us, and it gives us an opportunity to give you practical tools to strengthen your family. This week's question is pretty layered, and so I'm going to jump right into the question and then sharing my thoughts based on the archives and expert advice that we've gleaned over the years. So Stacy writes to us and says, I have been fostering our grandchild since March. It is now almost September. Both bio parents have drug addiction. Bio mom was on a trial home visit, but she used, and this was the reason our grandchild is now with us. After the trial home visits ended, bio mom was still getting supervised visits 2 times a week. And after every visit, our little one was dysregulated and started biting and hitting at the daycare and with the providers there at daycare. She would also act out towards us, and she's only 15 months old. Both parents have terminated their rights in May, and that is when I put a stop to the visits. We know that bio mom is still using while having supervised visits, and so I gave weekly updates and photos to bio mom, but she keeps pushing for in-person visits. And I just can't do those, as I don't know if she's using or not. She has had 13 years of using and has found loopholes in the system to keep her other kids with her, or keep seeing her other kids that she doesn't have custody of. So since we stopped the visits, my grandchild has become more stable and regulated and has stopped biting and hitting. Our caseworker has filed adoption papers, and we will soon finalize the adoption. Bio mom is still using, and she tells me she is an alienated parent, that I am holding her child back from her. Am I doing the right thing in not letting her see this child? So, Stacy, there's a lot of questions within that one big question. And I hear your frustration, and I hear your confusion, and I hear your pain. And I want to first acknowledge how hard this probably is for you, for your partner if you have one, and for this child. You don't say whether or not this child's bio mom is your adult child or if the child's bio dad is your adult child. But regardless, it's important to take a moment and sit with the disappointment and pain that you feel over bio mom's choices and over her substance use disorder and around her challenging behaviors that make this dynamic so difficult for all of you to navigate. It's really hard to separate ourselves from our kids' choices, even when they're adults. So I want you to give yourself permission to feel all the feelings that go with how you've landed where you are today. Give yourself some grace for navigating this imperfectly thus far. And I also hear some self-doubt in some of the choices that you've made thus far. And I want to remind you of just a few things, because it really has only been 7-8 months since you've had this child. So first thing I want to remind you of is that you did not plan for this to happen. You are responding to a new situation. You are navigating big unknowns for the very first time. So give yourself, again, that grace and some time to get your feet underneath you and to figure out what is right for right now. And second, I want to give you permission to give yourself permission to be flexible and responsive, to change your mind and to adapt to the situation as it evolves for your family and for this child. You don't have to have the perfect solution for the situation right now, and you don't have to have the perfect solution for the situation that may happen tomorrow or next week or next month. You do have to just keep showing up and being present for this child and being present for whatever the situation demands of you in the moment. Do what you think is best right now, and you'll notice that I keep saying right now. And that's something I'll get to in a couple minutes. But I just want to give you that grace and that permission to just respond to what you need to respond to right now. And the third thing I want to remind you of is that you are not alone. Did you know that over 2 million children in America are living in kinship or relative placements? That's according to recent data from Generations United. I highly recommend them as a valuable resource to the experiences that you're having right now. It's becoming much more common in communities across America that there are kids living in kinship or relative caregiving situations like what you're experiencing. If you are looking for some connection with some of those other 2 million families or caregivers of those 2 million kids, you can check out the Creating a Family Facebook group. We are running support kinship groups for families like yours, and you can reach out to info@creatingafamily.org to ask about our kinship groups. They meet once a month, and I'm the facilitator of the group that meets on Thursday nights. If you are interested in the Facebook group and you prefer to do things by written and text and things like that, you can check out facebook.com/groups/creating a family. Okay, so let's move on to the questions that you are posing within this big question. You asked, is it right for you to prohibit visits for your grandchild with their bio mom? And there's a few tips that we think you should think through about when and how to hold safe meetings and allow conditions under which you should not allow a visit. And so we're going to start with tip number 1, which is to recognize the value of this child's relationship with their birth parents. This child deserves to love and respect and honor her mother and or her father. She deserves to be supported for loving and respecting and honoring them. And I realize that at 15 months old, she's very young and she doesn't necessarily know them, but they're still her parents, and she still deserves to know that she is loved by them and that she has freedom to love them as well. It may be a challenge for you to love and respect them right now, and I get that. But no matter what, remember that this child is their child, and they are still a part of this child's story, whether they've terminated rights or not. And so you're in a situation where their rights have been terminated, you're moving towards adoption, but they are still her biological parents, and she has that as part of her story forever. The second is to recognize your own issues with this relationship and with your adult child or adult children. I already talked about that a little bit at the opening when I encouraged you to pause and think about how hard this is for you to be raising a child again after launching your own children into adulthood, to be parenting instead of embracing grandparenting, which are two very different things, and to face the reality of your adult children's choices and struggles that are now impacting this child. They're all really tough issues to work through, but you have to be willing to do it for the sake of the child's mental and emotional wellness and to lead that child to healing from the losses that they are experiencing right now. So the third tip would be then to create a plan where safety is the priority. How can you allow and encourage contact of some kind and still keep the child mentally, emotionally, and physically safe? So not only do you think about the issues of physical safety, when they show up, if they are high or intoxicated, are they a threat to the child in any way? Can they handle visiting with this child in a safe way? Of course, because the child is only 15 months old at this point, there's the issue of holding them, carrying them, things like that. You want to be able to answer those questions about the child's physical safety. But again, you should also be considering their mental and emotional safety when it comes to contact with their parent. Is she capable of getting to and from visits safely? If she is not, is there a way that you can facilitate that or help that to encourage a relationship? Split the cost of an Uber with her or meet her somewhere that she can walk to, those kinds of physical safety considerations. And then when you're thinking about the emotional and mental safety, is she able to be present and appropriate with this child when she is using? Sometimes when people who struggle with substance abuse issues are using, they are more capable of interacting than when they're withdrawing or when they're trying to get clean. And so you have to think about some of those issues. Can you be present for those visits and facilitate emotionally and mentally safe connection between the child and their parent? There are no easy or right or wrong answers to any of these questions. Each family has very unique and different challenges and unique and different circumstances that bring them to this table of conversation. And so you want to figure out what you can do to facilitate some type of contact, even if it's not in person right now, and then be willing and able to revisit that conversation. So tip number 4 would be establishing the boundaries around what is safe and appropriate right now. And again, being willing to revisit those boundaries and those parameters. It's helpful to kind of consider yourself maybe like a screen door between this child and their parent for now. Your job is to allow in the things that you think are safe and beneficial, but then to screen out the things that don't serve your grandchild well right now. You can protect this child with safeguards for contact, like designated times for phone calls, neutral territory for visits, safe public spaces for visits, how long each visit may last. Those are some of the safeguards that you can kind of screen for this grandchild. You can also hold consistent expectations for how this birth mother shows up for the visits, including how recently she may have used or what she's using, and how that impacts her time with this child. If you decide on phone or video calls only for right now, then consider listening in to the conversations. Of course, because the child is only 15 months old, you'll kind of have to be holding the phone and facilitating that way. So figure out how you can help the conversations stay positive and helpful to the child, helping the child recognize her mom's face. And as the child grows, these kinds of contacts and visits and interpersonal interactions will have to change to accommodate the child's development. But you'll want to make sure that as that growth and change happens, you're making sure that the child is protected from any unrealistic promises or things like that that would create future difficulties for relationship or for connection. Unrealistic promises can be super challenging for our kids who have limited contact with their parents. Tip number 5 is to keep the communication open and demonstrate a willingness on your part to adjust to the changes, whether that's birth mom successfully staying clean for 3 to 6 months and you interacting differently because of that. Those kinds of things. It's helpful if you could proceed with the assumption that she wants to succeed in her recovery and that she wants to succeed in her relationship with this child. It would be pretty rare that she doesn't feel some deep sense of love for this child, but also a significant amount of shame for the circumstances that have brought her to this point. And so treading gently and carefully and keeping communication open with a willingness to adapt to the changing circumstances can be a really significant help in this situation. So that means approaching these interactions with kind of a balance of hope and realistic expectations. That's hard. I understand that. You can hope that she can change and heal, but you can have realistic expectations that right now she's struggling also. You'll note that I keep saying for now and right now because it's crucial to remember that her situation can change and so can yours. And that's why it's so urgent that you decide now to assume the best, to remain open to ongoing conversations, and be willing to adapt as things change. Through it all, she deserves to know how her actions impact her child for good and for difficult. And until she proves that she's unsafe for this child, your grandchild deserves to know that you have been all along willing to support and improve the relationship between them. And number 6, consider some backup plans, because one of the realistic expectations that you've already experienced is that plans fall through. Birth parents don't make it to visits, they forget phone calls, they might disappear for weeks. Those are really hard things to accept, but when you are realistic about it, then you can have a backup plan and hold the backup plan loosely too. If the child knows in advance as they're older that there is an opportunity for contact, they might also know about the risks for disappointment. And so you have to be willing to talk with the child about that. Be prepared by creating kind of a alternate plan that you can fall back on if that disappointment does occur. For example, set a park visit at maybe a local park or a park between where you live and where your grandchild's birth mother lives. Play there for a little while so that even if mom doesn't show up, you can have an ice cream date on the way home, or you can enjoy the time in the park. And then it opens up opportunities to talk about how it felt when mom didn't show up. At this young age, because she is only 15 months old right now, she likely doesn't know about the chance that mom could show up or not show up. And so you could just have some alternate plans on the books for yourself. And through it all, try really hard to speak kindly about mom and about what mom's going through. Remember that this child does deserve to love and honor their mother, but they also deserve to feel sad and frustrated when things fall through. And so do you. So you can be this child's anchor and safe space, and then make sure you give yourself time and space to process disappointment or frustration as well. This is only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to learning how to navigate these kinds of sticky situations with birth parents. And I feel like it's a lot to take in and it's a lot to process. The layers of your previous history with this birth mother, her previous history of substance use, and her struggles with the consequences of that use can definitely feel weighty and heavy. And you can also just turn them around to use them to inform your next steps and how you go about creating an atmosphere of potential for contact and for connection. And it might look different now than it looks in 2 years. And it might look different today than it looks next month. That's kind of the nature of substance use and how quickly things change. And so some of it is rolling with it with an eye towards protecting and supporting this child, who should be really at the center of your and the birth mom's plans for how to manage this relationship. Listeners, if this was helpful to you as well as to Stacy, I encourage you to tell a friend about the Creating a Family Weekend Wisdom podcast. We'd also love it if you would send us a question, something that stumps you or something that you need to know to help support and strengthen your family. You can send questions to info@creatingafamily.org, and we'll put them in the queue and see what we can come up with based on expert opinions that we've learned from previous guests on previous podcasts or from the lived experience of people in our community with whom we interact every day. And we think that it would be a great way for your family to learn some new tips and tricks and things to navigate the world of adoption, foster care, and kinship care. If you appreciated what you heard today, again, please tell a friend about it. Thanks so much, and we'll catch you next week.